6 albums, 5 classics, 1 perfect catalog. This is Kendrick Lamar's discography ranked, and his worst album will be most rappers' best. Kendrick's studio albums are not easy to rank, with all of his mainline albums. And this is important to remember going into this. You can make a case not only for each one being his best album, but also for each being one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. Knowing that, before we go any further, if you have Kendrick Lamar in your top 10 rappers of all time, be sure to leave a like. And if you think he's higher than 10, don't just hit like. Let me know what you believe Kendrick's best studio album is. Without further ado, let's get into ranking every Kendrick Lamar studio album. Coming in at number 6, we have Kendrick Lamar's debut album, the one that started it all, Section .80. And despite this album being in last place here, compared to so many other rappers, though they may not want to admit it, this would easily be the best album in a lot of people's discographies. Even with this being the worst record in Kendrick's catalog, that's still an incredible title. When you listen to this album and look back on it all these years later, it's no surprise why it holds up the way it does. Section .80 is the musical equivalent of watching Michael Jordan play in his rookie season. In every aspect, you can see all the intangibles and skills that would allow Kendrick not just to become a star or a great rapper, but to become someone who could genuinely be the best the genre has ever seen. From the storytelling ability, something we had not heard from an MC at this level since artists like Nas, Andre 3000, or Tupac, especially on the haunting Kesha song, to the technical rapping ability that was off the charts and instantly recognized by everyone after hearing Rigor Mortis, Kendrick showed he possessed the skill set of a legend. Another thing about this record that we may not have fully recognized at the time, but has become clearer now, especially as his career has expanded to places like the Super Bowl, is that Kendrick already had a rare ability back then. During an era when hit songs were becoming more superficial and the industry's focus on lyricism and messaging was fading, Kendrick cut through the noise with tracks that became classic anthems like High Power and ADHD. These songs proved Kendrick could thrive in the face of industry trends, stand out as one of the most promising hitmakers, and still never compromise his integrity. At the same time, he carried all the lyrical intangibles we associate with icons like Tupac, Nas, Andre 3000, Eminem, and a select few others, for being the perfect introduction to someone who would go on to become one of the greatest rappers, if not the greatest, of all time. Section .80, even in last place, remains an incredible record and one of the strongest debuts hip-hop has ever seen. Coming in at number 5, we have Kendrick Lamar's biggest commercial album, which moved over 600,000 copies in its first week, Damn. What I will say is that these next 5 albums are all classics. Damn is not only one of the strongest rap albums of all time, deserving to be in any all-time conversation, but when you compare Kendrick's 5th best album to Drake's and J. Cole's best albums, I think this record surpasses their best work, and not by a small margin. Kendrick's 4th studio album is incredible because it succeeds on every level it aims for. It is a masterful body of work that shows Kendrick operating at the highest level as both a storyteller and conceptual artist, while also functioning as a hitmaker and superstar. When this album dropped in 2017, a tense and transitional moment in hip-hop, full of division and confusion, most big-name rappers and popular songs had little to say. Lyricists were far rarer, and much of the music coming out felt empty. For Kendrick to release an album in this environment, one with hits as massive as a now 20 times platinum Humble, which is actually certified as a best-selling rap song of all time, if updated, and other huge tracks like DNA, Element, Loyalty, and Love, shows just how expansive his hit-making ability is. And between those hits, he weaves a conceptual narrative filled with some of his most personal storytelling. By the time you reach the outro, Duckworth, you realize the entire narrative was told in reverse, adding yet another layer to the album's construction. Even the cryptic opening story sets the tone for an album with depth far beyond its commercial success. Damn is proof that you can create timeless art while achieving massive mainstream success without compromising your values. And when we consider the streaming era as a whole, excluding albums inflated with gimmicks or bonus track games, it stands as the highest-selling rap album in first-week numbers. Kendrick dominated with a vision that remained fully authentic, For these reasons, Damn is not just the fifth best Kendrick Lamar album. It is an undeniable classic and one of his many entries on the all-time rap album list. None of the projects we discuss from this point forward can be ignored either. Now, moving into the top four, we have Kendrick Lamar's 2022 album, m.A.A.d and the Big Steppers. This is one of those records that, when it dropped, genuinely divided hip-hop fans. Some people turned on Kendrick for it, and as we later saw during the beef, both Drake and Jay. Cole attempted to label the album a flop, a brick, or tragic. If you go as far as calling this album a flop, it reflects the type of rap listener you are. What I mean by that is you're enjoying rap for all the wrong reasons, and you're not appreciating what the genre was created to be, or what has evolved into as one of the most important expressive tools we've ever had. With m.A.A.d and the Big Steppers, both for Kendrick Lamar and for everyone who has had the privilege of listening to it. If you're willing to open your mind, be challenged, and experience what Kendrick not only put himself through, but wanted all of us to witness, this record becomes one of the most rewarding projects to revisit across all of music. And in terms of rap albums, right alongside Jay-Z's 444, it stands as one of the most important records we've ever seen in showing a rapper step up, mature, and confront the truths they've been avoiding. Before even getting into the music, I have to say this. In a media landscape, especially today, where everything is driven by artificiality and disingenuous performance, and where everyone wants to appear perfect, or in Drake's case, proudly embrace being trash and frame as cool, the type of role models people have become is obvious. In a world full of lies and performative personas, receiving a body of work that is a complete opposite of all that is invaluable. And for any songs on this album you may not connect with immediately, whether narratively or sonically, the strongest moments justify the entire journey. Some of Kendrick's best and most important songs are found on this record. m.A.A.d is an album that constantly shifts direction, and just when you think you understand where Kendrick is taking you, he moves in a completely unexpected way, making the experience even more powerful. As Kendrick breaks down his truth layer by layer, he shows us that he is not perfect, that he is nobody's savior, and that he can't even save himself. Being the first major figure in this culture to openly admit this, in an era obsessed with image and false perfection, only makes tracks like United in Grief even more impactful. In the grand scheme of Kendrick's album intros, it's easily the most shocking, especially compared to where we left him 5 years earlier. After becoming the biggest superstar in rap, achieving massive numbers, earning the highest accolades, and appearing flawless, he returned as almost an entirely different person. Despite all the success, he stripped all of that away and let us know directly that we were about to witness something we should be afraid to see. Whether the track like Worldwide Steppers, where Kendrick speaks with such clarity and honesty that you can hear him confronting the darkest part of his truth, or a song like Father Time, which pairs an upbeat instrumental and a phenomenal sample hook with a powerful story about why so many people struggle to express emotions and be vulnerable. This album cuts deep. It highlights how many of us have been conditioned to bottle up our feelings to survive our responsibilities and daily lives. To hear a rapper speak openly about these themes in such a thoughtful, emotional, and self-aware way, while allowing listeners to reflect on themselves through his own introspection, there is simply no other record in 50 years of hip-hop that does what m.A.A.d and the Big Steppers does. That's why it's so powerful. And the reason artists like Drake and J. Cole ignored all of this and reduced the album to the most superficial talking points tells us far more about them than it does about the project. But to act like m.A.A.d is only a great album because of what it represents, and not because of the music itself, would be dishonest. From N95, which still shakes stadiums today as one of Kendrick's strongest anthems, to Savior, a staple on the Big Steppers tour and a perfect Kendrick track with high energy and dense topical commentary. The musical quality is undeniable, and songs like Count Me Out stand among the most beautiful pieces Kendrick has ever released. Overall, m.A.A.d not only sounds incredible, but accomplishes something invaluable. And after discussing it at this length, it's important to highlight how extraordinary the ending is. The final tracks, Mother I Sober and Mirror, might be the best album finale we've ever seen. Mother I Sober is arguably Kendrick's most powerful track lyrically, operating on an entirely different level, while Mirror closes the album with the perfect emotional send-off, leaving listeners with a lingering impact of the line. I'm sorry. Mr. Morale and the Big Stepper stands as one of the most powerful pieces of art and media of this century, and one of the greatest in hip-hop history. Before we move into number 3, I want to point out what makes Kendrick's catalog so important. Every album serves a completely different purpose. While most rappers release projects that feel like simple extensions of their previous work, similar ideas, slightly different sounds. Kendrick belongs to a rare group of artists whose albums redefine themselves creatively from project to project. That evolution gives every record we've discussed even more weight and significance. With that said, coming in at number 3, and to me, Kendrick's most significant project for the genre of hip-hop, is none other than GKMC. While listeners have plenty of opinions about this album, when you look at everything it stands for, it is the ultimate hip-hop album, not just for its era, but for any era. As Kendrick explained during his Super Bowl interview with Ebro and Nadeska, he set out to create a project that reminded him of the rap he listened to as a kid. And that's exactly what he did. With just 12 tracks that showcase how incredible of an MC he is, Kendrick delivered an album that, if Section 80 is like watching rookie Michael Jordan, GNX is like watching prime Michael Jordan leading a 72, win Dynasty team to its 6th championship. And considering this is Kendrick's 6th album, the comparison feels especially fitting. This might actually be the most unique album in his catalog because, compared to the rest of his work, while there is still plenty of detail, messaging, and thematic depth, GNX features Kendrick rapping purely for sport more than ever before. On tracks like Hey Now, TV Off, and Squabble Up, you hear Kendrick flexing with complete confidence, holding the crown so high that no one else even comes close. By the end of this record, if you don't think Kendrick Lamar is the best MC alive, and that it isn't even up for discussion, I genuinely don't know what album you listen to. That is the essence of GNX. It is a fearless, unapologetic statement. And while Kendrick may have a few albums that are better overall, which we'll get to, I don't think he has an album that asserts dominance more decisively than this one, or that any rapper has ever. GNX is the ultimate victory lap. Coming off the biggest rap beef ever and winning in a fashion we've never seen before, Kendrick channeled that same energy. The energy he used to make the other members of the Big Three look like absolute clowns, and create a record that delivers everything you could ever want from a rap album. Just look at what's here. GNX contains every essential element of a great hip-hop body of work. If you want hardcore rap cuts layered with some of the most sharp, purposeful writing you'll ever hear, tracks like Whacked Out Murals and Man at the Garden handle that effortlessly. If you want hit-level rap records that can compete with anything in any era, Squabble Up and TV Off are top-tier anthems capable of dominating any room. And if you watched that Super Bowl halftime show, you saw undeniable proof of that. If you're looking for classic rap and R&B crossovers and more melodic vibes, you have Luther, which is a top-tier hit in any era, and Dodger Blue. And if you want masterful storytelling, you get Gloria and The Heart Part 6, 2 tracks that highlight Kendrick's narrative range in completely different ways. 4 West Coast bangers that capture Kendrick's identity and origins. You've got Hey Now, Peekaboo, and the self-titled track. But the pinnacle of the entire album, and one of the greatest songs Kendrick has ever made, is Reincarnated. In my opinion, it belongs in the conversation for Kendrick's best song ever, given the amount of meaning, history, and artistry conveyed at such a high level. And while many listeners immediately recognize a homage to Tupac in the sample in Kendrick's vocal delivery, something I love about GNX that doesn't get discussed nearly enough is how the album operates as a massive love letter to hip-hop and to music as a whole. If you truly appreciate the genre and understand its history, each listen makes the album even richer, because Kendrick tips his hat to at least one musical legend on nearly every track. Beyond that, there's a theme that connects all these tributes. Many of the artists Kendrick references, due to industry politics or personal circumstances, never received the recognition they deserved. So Kendrick shines a light on them. On Reincarnated, he honors Tupac, but the track is also a clear nod to DMX. Something Kendrick highlighted himself on tour by emphasizing DMX's influence on this entire era. The song's narrative structure even mirrors DMX's style from tracks like Damien, which I highly recommend listening to if you haven't. It's one of the greatest rap songs ever made. Man at the Garden pays homage to Nas in his iconic track, One Mic, while Whacked Out Murals also reflects Kendrick's admiration for him. Gloria stands as both a tribute to hip hop as a whole and to Common's I Used to Love Her. Outside of rap, Luther honors Luther Vandross, and that tribute has only become more meaningful over time. Vandross never earned a number one song as a lead artist, something that people still absurdly use as an asterisk on his career. To see a track named after him, built around his voice, and reaching number one now is incredibly powerful if you understand his legacy. Squabble Up nods to the often overlooked world of freestyle music, and especially to Debbie Deb, a legend in a scene that never quite broke into the mainstream. Seeing that influence now top the charts through Kendrick brings a sense of justice and visibility to a genre long overshadowed. TV Off is a tribute to Biggie, and The Heart Part 6 spotlights the TDE peers Kendrick came up with. Schoolboy Q, J-Rock, and Absol. When you look at the full picture, the musical excellence, the craftsmanship, the tribute structure, the cultural intention, it becomes clear that GNX absolutely has meaning. In fact, it's bursting with it. Throughout this high-energy highlight reel album, Kendrick is honoring some of the most important rappers and musicians ever, many of whom were never given proper recognition. GNX stands as a record that honors the history of music while reminding us why rap matters, why artistry matters, and why authenticity will always outlast trends. Whether you know all the origins and references or not, the album proves that when rap operates at its highest level, it becomes the most culturally dominant force in any room, any stage, any era. For Kendrick to deliver a masterwork victory lap album that stands unmatched in ambition and execution, GNX earns its place at number 3 on this list and ranks as one of the best rap albums ever made. There's no way around putting it in that conversation. And now, moving into the top 2, I'll be honest, these next 2 albums could easily be considered the best rap albums of all time. You could even argue that both belong in the top 5 if you really wanted to go that far. And with that in mind, choosing between these 2 is not easy. But in the number 2 spot, we have Kendrick Lamar's second album, Good Kid, m.A.A.d City. When you look at hip-hop over the last 15 years, specifically the 2010s and 2020s, with all the stars and trends those decades produced, Good Kid, m.A.A.d City stands in this era the way Illmatic stood in the 90s and 2000s. Even today, after all these years and all the albums Kendrick has released since, the genius on display here is still hard to fathom. Kendrick created an album that many would argue features the greatest story ever told on a rap project. From start to finish, even the biggest Drake stans admit this album is phenomenal. Within seconds of listening, you're immersed in a world that pulls you directly into its setting. You feel every emotion, thought, conflict, and detail from the protagonist's perspective. As an audio experience, Good Kid, m.A.A.d City is unmatched in immersion, and that's a quality that will stand the test of time. Everything down to the smallest details elevates this album, from the voicemails and vocal interludes from Kendrick's parents and grandmother, to the banter between Kendrick and his friends, to the beat switches that reflect the album's title by showing both the brilliance of Kendrick and the chaos he has to navigate. Despite being a purely audio medium, Good Kid, m.A.A.d City delivers a story more vivid and cinematic than most films. And when you go through the track list and realize how many of these songs have become stadium anthems, the magnitude becomes even clearer. Even the tracks that didn't cross into that territory are masterpieces, like Sing About Me, which, across its 12-minute runtime, provides one of the most powerful and emotional experiences you can have with a song. It serves as the album's climax and highlights a narrative so raw and challenging that it takes you to emotional places you didn't know a song could reach. That is the genius of Good Kid, m.A.A.d City. With its storytelling, its timeless hits, and everything in between, Kendrick transports you into an entirely different world. As you learn about him, he simultaneously shows you that music can take you to places you never imagined. For that reason, this isn't just his second best album, it's arguably the best rap album ever. And the fact that it still isn't number 1 on this list is surreal. But taking the number 1 spot for Kendrick Lamar's best album is none other than his 2015 project, To Pimp a Butterfly. When you look at this album as a whole, what it represents in Kendrick's catalog, and what it means for hip-hop culture, it becomes clear that this record takes the original vision of the genre's pioneers and pushes it further than anyone could have imagined. In a way, It completes the narrative arc that hip-hop had been striving toward for decades. Through the realizations and breakthroughs Kendrick reaches here about himself, the world around him, and the cultural forces that shape and surround hip-hop, this album delivers everything you could ever want from the genre and the culture. Its depth and scope make TPAB not only everything you could want in rap, but everything you could want in any piece of media, art, or expression. But focusing solely on the music, one thing is undeniable. TPAB is a sonic masterpiece. The jazz-infused production, brought to life by Thundercat, Terrace Martin, Robert Glasper, Pharrell, the Isley Brothers, and many others, roots the album in a sound that feels organically tied to its themes. There are very few hip-hop albums that can even attempt to match how good TPAB sounds. Beyond the sound, this album captures the best qualities of every Kendrick Lamar album, and arguably of every great rap album across the 16 tracks. From the anthems like Alright, arguably Kendrick's biggest and most important song, to the deeper cuts whose meanings leave you stunned, the album is consistently breathtaking. It begins with Wesley's Theory, arguably the greatest rap intro ever, and moves through moments like For Free, one of the greatest interludes, How Much a Dollar Cost, one of the greatest storytelling songs ever, You, possibly the most emotional rap track, and Mortal Man, arguably the best album outro of all time in any genre. When you examine the narrative and message that builds throughout the album, guided by the poem that expands as the project progresses, and witness Kendrick's personal and societal struggles becoming more complex and fully realized, you see how meticulously this album was crafted. Nearly every track, whether it's Wesley's Theory, These Walls, You, Mama, or any of the 16 songs, offers a moment that not only impresses you, but genuinely shifts the way you see art, media, and even the world. To me, what makes this album so special, and what I mean when I say it completes a vision statement of what hip-hop was always meant to be, is that rap is genuinely one of the only forms of media that can help you think better, overcome challenges, and grow into your best self. Through what Kendrick Lamar experiences on TPAB and the discoveries he makes throughout it, the album conveys points and ideas that you could easily spend years trying to fully understand, and as listeners, you gain an incredible amount from it. And it's important to remember that while the album completed hip-hop's story in the abstract sense I'm describing, it was also so good and truly changed so many lives that it placed a mantle on Kendrick, one that ultimately led to the most important stories he would later go on to tell, like on Mr. Morale. When you look at TPAB, its impact and success are what gave Kendrick the whole savior moniker that people tried to place on him. Even though Kendrick had to address that and would tell you it wasn't a good thing, this album genuinely made people think of him that highly. It's surreal to consider how that affected Kendrick and how much promise and greatness the music displayed. So much so that the title became something bigger than music itself. When you look at the reputation Kendrick earned in rap because of this project, and then consider how this masterful album concludes, with Kendrick Lamar having a conversation with Tupac and with the meaning of what Pac says becoming more important each year since its release, you really see the culmination of what rap storytelling can achieve at its highest level. Hearing the historical face of hip-hop speak to Kendrick after the album's most important discovery of self and of everything around him shows the full power of the genre. Because of all this, and for so many additional reasons that would take years to fully unpack, TPAB is Kendrick Lamar's best album. And if you said it's the best album of all time, I wouldn't argue with you. So there you have it. Kendrick Lamar's 6 studio albums ranked. Listening to all these records, preparing for this, and looking at his catalog the way we just did, it truly feels like a Michael Jordan level run in rap. Out of the 6 albums, I think 5 are undisputed classics. Using the source rating scale, there are 5 Mike albums. Only a few artists in hip-hop have catalogs as purposeful and this committed to quality. And going even further, when you consider how each album offers something unique and important, something invaluable no matter who you are, it elevates Kendrick's position even more. The fact that he can be a superstar, make hit songs, and still pack so much value into everything he talks about on these albums speaks to what has always been the best part of rap. As fun as it can also be life-changing for all the right reasons. When you look at Kendrick's catalog and where everything stands, it's hard to argue that this isn't one of the best rap discographies ever, if not the best. At any table with any musician, Kendrick Lamar can sit there and legitimately claim he has one of the greatest catalogs ever put into music. When you see the buildup of who Kendrick Lamar is, how he has evolved, the different pockets and stories he has explored over the years, and even when you hear GNX, the confidence in the way he raps, while also knowing how deeply he has dug on albums like Mr. Morale and TPAB to earn a right to make those claims about his pen game or anything else, you start to notice something about this catalog. And I think I can say it more strongly than about almost anyone else's discography. Kendrick Lamar has created the perfect loop of albums that all complement each other beautifully. If you like one album, whether you prefer Kendrick making hit songs or diving into concept-driven storytelling, you inevitably appreciate the others. They all work in unison because everything Kendrick Lamar does enhances everything else he does. You can especially see this through GNX. Compared to many other rappers who focus on braggadocious content without the skill or success to back it up, they're just saying things without the power to carry them. To quote a GNX bar, there's a lot of opinions, but no power to carry it. That's exactly the contrast. When you hear Kendrick rap and see these 6 albums, you know the power behind them, and you know you are witnessing one of the greatest masters of their craft that we have ever seen across any form of art or media. You could even include sports and competition in that comparison, because rap is a competitive genre. Rap is a sport. With all that in mind, and with a full understanding of who Kendrick Lamar is, I have to ask you, do you think Kendrick Lamar is the greatest rapper of all time? If you made it this far in the video, be sure to leave your own album ranking in the comment below, and share your thoughts on how this catalog stacks up against everything else in hip-hop, and what it says about Kendrick Lamar as a whole. And if you want to see how, right before this, people on Kendrick's team were teasing new music, and how there might be a 7th project added to this ranking very soon, you're not going to want to miss it. Check out the suggested video.